Hello and welcome to our 7th Conversation to Connect. Let's get real. Conversation powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm CyndiONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. Each week, I nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or beverage of your choice and settle in, take notes, and join us at the Q&A segment at the end of this talk. So about the 45-minute, 1-hour mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite visitors to ask questions, share their ahas, epiphanies, and even enter into our conversation. So the inspiration of our weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real talks is to create purposeful conversations. So we desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times and to support our community to make an impact in the world and stay connected. So our Conversation to Connect this week is with Karen Randall from Bellevue, Washington. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
And Karen is going to be sharing with us the power of silence in transition. And we had a little bit of a pre-talk ahead of time, and you guys are in for a treat. Really great content and information. So before I bring Karen on, it's my pleasure to share some background information about Karen. So Karen Randall is a transition life coach, energy psychologist, creative arts facilitator, college professor, and I love this part, recovering CPA. Karen empowers and encourages her clients to embrace transition as an invitation to envision, create, and manifest their next stage in life as one that is filled with purpose, meaning, and fun. And you'll see this lady has a lot of creativity and fun that she offers. So after 30 plus years in the business world, Karen Randall considers herself a recovering CPA, finance and executive management business leader. She left her business career to pursue a master's in transpersonal psychology, where the focus of her research was the process of transition brought about by significant life events. She is followed soon thereafter by certification as a life coach. She brings her wisdom and knowledge as a yoga teacher, multi-talented woman here, creative arts facilitator, energy psychologist, and life transition coach to each coaching session. Karen is also a member of the faculty at Sophia University. Karen empowers and encourages her clients to embrace transition as an invitation to envision, create, and manifest their next stage in life as one that is filled with purpose, meaning, and value. So Karen is also a contributing author to The Call of Self,
Synthesis.
Thank you. Looks really scary. Life coaching, which is a journey to understanding transpersonal oriented life coaching, where she shares her experience of the intersection of life coaching and volleyball coaching. You're gonna have to tell us more about that. So today, Karen is going to take us on a journey of discovery about the process of transition. We are all experiencing a significant life transition right now. Amen. We experienced a major change when COVID brought a halt to life as we were living it. We are experiencing a transition as we cope with our interior response to this drastic change. Karen will share the secrets of embracing this process of transition and how you can use these significant life events to intentionally create a life that you love. So Karen, I'm just going to turn it over to you to kind of set the stage before we dig in and talk about your 4 stages of transition.
Okay, well, thank you, Cyndi. Thank you so much for having me here today and for this opportunity to share about the way that I view what is happening in the world through the lens of transition. And I said something in the bio that I want to reiterate, and that's the difference between change and transition. So we all experience change all the time. I mean, there's, the saying, if there's one thing that's true in life, it's that it will change. So we all experience changes over and over and over again. But sometimes those changes are more significant, and sometimes they invite us into a process, or maybe they don't invite us, they force us into a process of questioning the way that we view ourselves, our lives, and what we want to do in this limited time that we have on this earth. And I see this time right now as a significant transition, not only for ourselves individually, but for ourselves as a country and for ourselves as a world, right? This is a time when we're seeing that in spite of the way we might have been thinking that we were not connected, we are in fact all very connected. And that has just been so strongly reiterated to us through this time. So I would like to talk about how I view transition and how I see these times of significant life events as an invitation that we can use to intentionally create our lives in a way that gives us purpose and meaning and value and joy.
Beautiful and so timely. So thank you so much. So let's dig in here. So we want to talk about the 4 stages of transition. And so lay that out for us.
Sure. The first stage starts with an ending. So we all experienced a ending, right? I mean, it was like, bam, everything is done. The way you were doing things, it isn't happening anymore. And we sometimes think of an ending as something ending as very sudden and very short. For instance, if you lose a job, that happens one day, right? But really, when you think about it, there is the event, and then there's all sorts of little details that keep you busy. In this case, it was like, okay, how am I going to work at home now? How am I going to deal with my kids and getting them educated? And what about food and toilet paper, obviously? There was all of these details that we had to take over or take care of. And then all of a sudden, we get through all of that busyness, and then the reality hits. And excuse me for if you're offended by this, but I call that day the oh shit day, when you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you go, oh shit, what's going to happen today? This is the new reality. And it just kind of hits like that. What do I do today? I don't have all of those busyness things to take care of, all of those details. This is the new reality. And what? And that's when you move into that second stage. So Cyndi, was there some questions you had about that first stage?
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about when you and I had this conversation beforehand, which is intriguing, and everybody on this call is in for a treat. We talked about change versus transition. So can you identify the distinction between those 2 terms and how important they are for that first step?
Yes. Yeah. So as I said, we experience lots of changes. And you can have significant changes that don't impact you, and then you have significant ones that do impact you. And when you have the ones that, I mean, like for some people, losing a pet is a major, significant life event. And for other people, it's like, no big deal, right? When your parent dies, for some people, this is huge, and it takes so much time to kind of wrap your arms around that. And for other people, it's like, no, that's the normal course of life. It's very sad, but we know that that's going to happen. So I can't say exactly when those times are going to happen, but I can say that over a lifetime, we will all experience changes that put us into a deeper level of questioning our place in the world and what our life looks like now as opposed to what it can look like. And if we move through the transition, we come out on the other end with a life that is more meaningful to us. And if we avoid moving through that transition, we end up stuck kind of in the same way. And the next time a significant life event comes up, it's a bigger deal, and then a bigger deal.
And one thing I want to talk about that I know we're going to weave through this later in the conversation is how once we go through difficult times in our life, we do build this muscle, right? So that's something to draw on. That has helped me over the years is I'm like, okay, I survived it. And we learn things from it. We learn skills, coping skills and whatnot that take us through the next. So although the next challenge may be bigger, we're also bigger, we're better, we're more equipped. You know,
I love that we're bigger, you know, that we can handle more. We are exercising that muscle of exploring the inner depth.
right.
And through that exploration, bringing that out into the outer world.
Right. So let's talk about quarantining. So you had an interesting perspective on it being an invitation for greater silence. So can you elaborate on that?
Yes, when we move out of that first stage, which was very busy and there was a lot going on, we move into the second stage. And in that second stage, things quiet down a lot. And for some people, that's comfortable. And for other people, that is very uncomfortable. And it's very scary because it's not where we are used to living for the most part. And if we can, rather than avoiding that silence, if we can allow it, there are so many gifts that we can bring into our lives through that silence. And one of the things that I think is so important about that is that in silence, we are able to hear messages from the divine. And that's whatever spiritual tradition that you might come from. We don't hear those messages when we're moving and shaking and working and doing it all the time. But when we can be quiet and listen, we can hear the messages. And you might call it intuition, you might call it a gift from God, you might call it the divine whispering to you. Whatever it is, the gift of being silent is that those messages become a lot more clear.
I love that. That's beautiful. So I'm going to have us back up a minute because before the quarantine, the world went crazy, right? Everyone, you know, the toilet paper and I mean, all these different things that were happening that people are like, why toilet paper? And why is everybody freaking out? And what's about all the hoarding? Yeah. And so when you're talking about the ending, I mean, everybody was not knowing what to expect, you know, and feeling like they had to be busy and prepare. So during that time of frenzy, we don't have time to think really. Right? I mean, we might be strategizing, but tell us about that. Because I thought when you and I had a conversation, I thought that was intriguing that how as a human race, we were all responding in an interesting way until we were in a shelter in place mode.
Right. And what happens with these changes is that we are so often put into the fight, flight, or freeze, the reptilian brain, right? We go into what do I have to do to take care of me and my own, right? So that's where the toilet paper frenzy came from. For some reason, it was like, my family, my home, my people need toilet paper, you know? And it very much puts us into this, this us versus them reptilian brain, the survival instinct comes in. And so, what can we do? And that's not unusual. Like when you lose a job, it's that same kind of thing. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to have food? It's just reptilian reaction. We're just reacting instead of taking the step back and taking a breath and thinking, okay, logically, I have a house, I have food, I have clothing, I'm okay, right? And so, one of the biggest things that you can do is just that, take a breath and then take another breath. And then Cyndi and I talked about some other ways that you can support yourself in this way. That realization that you have a lot of emotion, and that emotion is energy stored in the body if it's not expressed, is really important. You want to get that energy out of the body, and you can do that by dancing.
Dancing, right?
Dancing is a great
Roxana
way.
could talk about that later. She does dance parties with her, community. 20 minutes, they're up there dancing and, just sweating and stuff. But that's good for us, right?
It's so good. And I just started this thing yesterday. I have to do this little shout out. It's called Body Groove, and it's like $59 for a whole year, and you get hundreds of these videos, and they're just little half an hour dance parties, really easy. Really easy to do. If you don't know how to dance, this is the thing for you. And it's very friendly in terms of, if you're in a chair, do it. If you are on crutches, do it. It's very friendly. But I felt so good after I did that because it moves the energy. Another thing I like to do is I like to take a pillowcase and just snap it against a table. It makes such a really great noise. And that's using so much of your upper body, and really, which is where we store so much in our trunk, right? In our core. And it's just moving that energy out. And as soon as you can do that, you stop and you just can feel yourself going,
Oh, my husband would, when he walks in the door later this afternoon, I might get a pillow and have a pillow fight with him, right? To get that energy out. But
yeah.
there's something about the snap that you said. It's not just like hitting a pillow to
Right.
the bed, right?
I like snapping it on the
I wouldn't attack him with a pillow, but I think
but maybe the towel that you roll up and yeah.
that's where that kitchen towel thing comes from,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's great. I
But
love
what
it.
that does by releasing that energy is it takes us out of reptilian reactive mind, and it allows us to think logically and to come up with a plan that makes sense. And that's what we're really trying to do when this first stage draws us into the us versus them survival mentality.
Right. Okay. So it reminds me of like a teapot, right? So a teapot, you put it on and the water boils. And if you didn't have, if it was enclosed, it would explode.
Yeah, yeah.
So the teapot, there's a little venting process. So we've got to allow ourselves room to be like, I'm a little teapot, the little song that we used to sing our kids. So be a teapot, right?
Right.
That's right. I see the little teapot there.
Because you don't want to explode, at your husband, at your kids, at the dog. And we all know, you can tell that you have that feeling of just so much held in because you are holding in. It's energy you're holding in. And so find a way to let that go,
Right.
one way or another.
I love it. That's great. Okay, so you alluded to it. You gave a little teaser at the beginning about the second stage, but now talk about the name of that second stage. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I love this word liminal. The liminal space, it's like the in between. So the way that I think of it is in that morning time when you're laying in bed and you wake up, but you're not really awake and you're not really asleep. And I think it's like the best time, if you can just lay there and capture that feeling for a while. It's just this really great space. And it means literally between. So in this liminal stage, you're between the ending and you're between what's next. And there's important things that happen in this liminal time.
Right. And so that's a time, it reminds me, in high school, I played tennis. And so it reminds me, we were talking about how like in doubles, they say, don't go in the no man's zone. So that's that same liminal stage, right? Where you don't want to be caught in that no man's zone, because when you are, those of you who play tennis, you have to really commit to, charge the net or stay at baseline. You don't want to be in that in between, because that's where you get caught off guard, right? That's where you're not really grounded. You're in this space where you're very vulnerable. So you and I were talking about how, knowing tennis, how that really related to this stage. Tell us more about that.
It really does, because there was a couple things there that really resonated with me. The first one is you don't want to get stuck there. But what happens is that if you don't spend time there, you do get stuck there, right? So you need to spend the time there to allow what needs to happen so that you can move out of it. That part is really important. And you also, the difference between this and tennis is that you don't want to charge through it. Like in tennis, man, you want to charge right through that and get to the net. And that is our normal response in our country, in our culture. It's like, no, I don't want to feel this discomfort of disorientation. And that's, think back to when this all started and we're like, what is happening right now? Our safety and our understanding of how our world works is gone. But if it's not like that, what is it like? And that's so disorienting. Like, if that's not true, then what else isn't true? And we find ourselves feeling very ungrounded because of that, because everything could be untrue, right? If one thing that we took for granted, our physical safety is not guaranteed, what else isn't guaranteed? And that feeling is so disorienting and so scary. And that's the part we don't want to feel, right? We don't want to feel that fear, because it's in the sadness and the grief of what our life was like and what we had to give up. And yet, if we don't allow space for those feelings, and if we don't feel them, we don't get to let them go.
I love that. So essentially the liminal stage is a stage where you're wanting to feel everything, right? Feel the sorrow, feel, that our world's never going to be the same again. And I think back to 911, there's so many remnants. Yes. If you look at the, going to the airport, the TSA and everything from that, and you wonder, okay, what are going to be the remnants from this that we're going to be, it's going to change our world forever. So I love that you're just encouraging everybody. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to be there. Just don't get stuck there, right? Don't stay there. That we've talked about this in other calls with other guests. It's just allow it to flow, allow the energy to flow through you, not to get stuck.
Right. And I think if we think about kids, we can really kind of understand the logic of this also. If you've had kids or just have been around kids as they're kind of going through what is happening, or even another time, like we encourage kids to let the anger out, right? We're like, yeah, go ahead, because we know it's good for them. And yet somehow we got this idea it's not good for us too. It's not appropriate because we're grown up, but actually it's very appropriate, and giving yourself permission for that is really helpful. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, a lot of ways that can support you, such as journaling or using, I like to put just a big piece of paper on the wall and take paints and just, move big movements to draw your feelings. There's not only just talking about it, but you can talk about it with friends and family members. There's lots of ways that you can move this and feel this and experience it and not get stuck.
Yes, no, that's great. So Marcella's, she was commenting, it doesn't seem professional to feel all the things that we're feeling, right? That we have to kind of keep it contained. So that's a really good point. So those are things you can do in the confines of your home, flick your wall or your husband or whatever. How about just, that's a funny way to say it, but just move that body, move that energy out. So Karen, talk to us about what
Can I just respond to that quickly also? I would say that the rules of professionalism are changing right now on top of it, and that vulnerability invites vulnerability.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's true. You're right. It's a different world. In so many respects, we've been going in that direction, but now it's just reinforcing it. So we tell ourselves that we should be doing things. So talk to us about that.
Okay, we could do a poll here. How many people feel like they should be increasing their exercise during this? Okay, how many people should be seeing all the opportunities that are presented for us and taking advantage of those?
All of them.
Yes, and how many people should be making sourdough bread right now? Yeah, or trying some new cooking kinds of things. Yeah. Is there anything else that you should be doing right now? You should be positive because we're all going to get through this. We are shooting on ourselves so much right now.
Yeah.
And all that is doing is setting us up for not experiencing our true feelings, right? Our true emotions. And that doesn't mean that we can't be doing any of these things. Right. It is the awareness that, yes, we have opportunity and we have feelings. Right. Yes, I'm excited about being able to exercise more because I have more time at home. And I'm really sad that I can't see my grandkids. So it's the both and allowing both of those things to be true. All of those things to be true.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of it is where we focus our energy and attention, whether it's gratitude or focusing on what's going on in the world, managing how much time we spend listening to the 24-hour news cycles. Yeah. So there are other things that we talked about you can do. So, that are grounding opportunities, right?
Yes, yeah. Nature, man, nature. We have been so lucky in this area, in the Seattle area anyway, because the weather has really cooperated with us during our quarantining for the most part. But being outside, no matter what, is so healing. And doing it with the intention of connecting with outside nature as opposed to, and this is what I do. I go out and I put my headphones in and I'm listening to a podcast and I'm walking to get my steps in, but that's a very different focus and intention of going outside and really connecting with nature and actually touching the ground with your hands is so healing. Cyndi talked about this because she's a gardener, but first off, there's a lot of healing bacteria in dirt. So allowing dirt to touch you and for those bacteria to get on you is building up your immune system. That's one of the ways that being outside is so good for you. And there's also healing energy frequencies that help you to heal. So those are really important. But talking to your friends is also really important, staying connected. It is. And Gail and I were talking about this at the beginning. this is really wonderful for her because she's able to be connected to this community now because we're virtual. And that is a blessing. It really is. But it also can be too much. 7 hours on Zoom is not a healthy thing.
Yeah, it's everything in moderation.
Right.
So just to kind of put a bow on that conversation, we talked about, it's okay to go hug a tree, right?
I do hug trees.
No, it
I
is.
had to do this practice when I went back to school. And it was in the winter, so it wasn't great weather at all. For a week, I had to go and sit leaning against a tree with my hands on the ground. And I mean, the whole time I was just like, it's cold, it's rainy, the whole thing. But I tell you that when I think about a peaceful time, that immediately comes to mind, and I can channel that. And Cyndi, you mentioned that you have that same feeling from gardening,
Yes.
that you can picture that and you immediately are able to, kind of lower your energy, to relax, to de-stress.
Yes, it is truly grounding. And it's interesting because I was telling Karen that, I wear gloves and I'm in the dirt and digging and getting my, soil amendments. And for the most part, I wear my gloves. But the other day, I felt really compelled to just take off my gloves. And I'm just literally like getting in the dirt and, mixing my Epsom salt in and patting it down, being able to feel the dirt in my plants that I was, just seeding down. And so it was really great to get that encouragement from her that my body needed that at the moment. I mean, that's how it felt. It felt like, what am I doing? I need to get in there, get dirty. So there's something really beautiful about this season that we're in right now. Although we're in many states, they're still sheltering in place, and they're kind of gently releasing different segments of the population to keep the economy moving. But I'm just really present to how important it is right now in the midst of the things that we, I'm not going to say the S word, but that we think we should be doing, or we feel like we should be doing, to do things that bring us joy.
Yeah.
And so I've made a commitment every day. And last night, it was after dinner, and it was like 8 o'clock when I finally got out in my garden. Mm-hmm. And I was out there for about an hour until it got dark. And I was so thankful that I made myself do that, because by then I was tired. I'm like, oh, I don't feel like going. And I took a shower in the morning, and do I want to do this? Just all those reasons. But I was so grateful that I did. And my husband was grateful too, because he said, that's good for you. You need to, you've been in front of the Zoom all day. It's good that you get out there and dig. And he felt that my spirit was lighter as well. So
I did just want to focus for 1 minute on, we just kind of lightly touched on this, the grief and the sadness. And I think that it's so easy for us to kind of ignore that. But what we lost was significant. And I want everyone to just kind of sit for a moment and think about what it is that you miss the most. And allow that feeling of sadness to have a voice, because it is real. And there are truly things to be sad about. And there are truly things that we can grieve. And that is okay. And I just want to focus on that as a reality of this process, because if we don't feel that, and if we don't grieve, and if we don't let go of what our old reality was, we don't create space for something new.
Right. You talked about there being a fatigue factor, right, in the fight or flight.
Yeah.
And how exhausting change is. Because sometimes we, I know for myself, I think, why am I so tired? Mm-hmm. And we're dealing with a lot of energy, not only in our own space, but also in the world. And don't you think we're all feeling that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that we all often forget how hard it is when we make changes. So think about when you have started a new job in the past, and you have to think about every single thing. right? Every single thing, like, oh, today I have to get up and I have to have breakfast by this time and I have to pack this. And it's like every single thing. And you're so tired by the end of that first week. It's exhausting because even when you're there, you're trying to remember people's names and you're trying to remember where the bathroom is and where the coffee pot is and all of this stuff. Well, that's what we've just gone through. We've gone through a change and we've had to be thinking about everything. And it gets really exhausting. And on top of it, there was all the problem solving before that of what all do we need to bring home? What all do we have to get to bring here? What all do we need in our little environment so that we can do what we need to? All of that kind of builds and builds, and then you just get tired. And again, allowing yourself time to rest, giving yourself the permission to be tired and to rest is really important. And not just think, well, I'm going to pick up tomorrow and I'm going to start working my normal 10 hours a day for 5 days this week. You might not be able to do that, and that's okay.
Right. So before we can move on to the next stage, we talked about it's important for us to make room, right, for what's coming by letting go of the things that we've been dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that visual.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
If your life was full before,
Yeah.
it's hard to put something new into it without letting go of something.
Yes. Yes, that's a good reminder. So let's move on to stage number 3, which is envisioning. And so if stage number 2 was, being wary of not shoulding on ourselves and all of that, this is the I could, right? You talked about that. So share more with us about this stage and the importance of it.
Well, if we take the time to allow ourselves to rest and to recover and to listen to messages from the divine through silence and to feel our feelings and to grieve and feel sad and to let go of that, eventually we start to have more energy. And for humans, energy almost always translates to creativity, imagination.
Beautiful.
We have space for imagination, and we start to think, well, I could do this, or I could do that, or this could work. And I think there was like this drastic, compression of all of these ending and envisioning into like a week. We all had to, because we had true need, right? There's income and there's businesses that we needed and wanted to maintain, but it was really compressed. And so our creativity, I think, happened in the box of what existed before. And if we really take that step back and allow ourselves to feel and to let go, that box kind of opens up. And we're not limited by the reality of what we had before. We start to say, I could do this. And what's really exciting about that is that we can move outside the box completely and think of things that we didn't even think were possible. And, maybe they are, maybe they're not, who knows? This is just the creativity stage and allowing ourselves to dream. It's really dreaming. And then eventually that dream starts to narrow down into a vision of what we really want to do.
So we're going through things on a personal level, and silence is important, right? To be able to access that creativity. I know that, whatever is grounding activity for you, whether it's walking in the woods, and Marcel had a cute comment. She said, forest therapy is real. And it is. And Shauna loves nature. And, we were just all chiming in on the side comments here. But in the midst of that, there's personal creativity that I know I've been experiencing in my business, and pivoting, there's that word, from live to virtual networking luncheons and even this, different conversations, but also from a standpoint of our country and the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the innovation that's occurring and will come out of this is just, I think it's just going to be staggering.
Yes, absolutely. And Cyndi, it's a really important point because we are all in a transition on a global level and on the level of our country and on our states and our cities and our towns and our homes. And one of the things that can happen because we are often quarantining with family members is that you're at different places on this transition journey. And, that might create a little bit of tension. And the really important thing is realizing that we're all doing this, in our homes, in the grocery stores, wherever it is that we're seeing people. Everyone is trying to get their feet underneath them and figure out what their new reality is. And it's a time for compassion for every single one of us.
Yes, that's so true. Time to be kinder than ever to ourselves and to others, and gracious and forgiving. I'm finally finding that that's something that's real top of mind for me right now, because it's easy to judge. It's easy to be hard on ourselves and others. And I think really what this season is calling us to do is really be more compassionate than ever. So talk to us about the transition from, like, you have this vision, you have this idea, and you think, I can do this, and the creativity, to moving it to more certainty, like, I can do it. I can do this. Help us understand that process.
Yeah, so that's when we move from the third stage, which is really that it's still, there's a lot of introspection and quiet and maybe, creating with help from other people. But when we start to get that vision really honed down, we're at that point where we're ready to start making it a reality. And that's when we move into the fourth stage. And that fourth stage is when we become strategic and when we become more plan oriented and more detail oriented about how you're going to move from where you are now to this vision of your life that includes purpose and meaning and value, and it's a life that you love. And this is not necessarily a 1 week plan or a 1 month plan or a 1 year plan. This can be a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. If you still have kids in the home and you know that you have the college years ahead and you have a job that's very important to supporting your family, and yet you want to start your own business, that's going to take some time to make that a reality. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It means that you need to become strategic about how you're going to make that move and when you're going to make those moves.
Right.
And making those moves little by little help you to maintain your positive feelings about that and to not get frustrated and to keep that vision alive.
I love that. So it's interesting that this fourth stage that you're, identifying and sharing with us is the new beginning, right?
Yeah.
So the first stage was the end. So you're
Yeah.
starting with the end and you're ending with the new beginning. So I find that really kind of fascinating. Tell us more about just the framing of that.
Well, I thought about this a little bit more as we talked. And, what I thought is that I look at this process as a divinely orchestrated transformational process. And isn't this just like a divine process?
Yes, it
That
is.
things are flipped upside down and that we start with an ending and we end with a beginning.
I love that. That's beautiful. And I'm also like thinking of myself. I know I went into like strategic mode right off the bat.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else did. And action mode, because I was remembering, the great recession, 2008, 2010, 11. I'm thinking, okay, I was able to remain relevant through those times when a lot of other businesses went out of business. What helped me? And for me, it was being in action, being strategic, And I actually had to kind of back off from that because I realized, especially now after talking to you, I didn't give myself that space, right?
Yeah.
That liminal space, that in between, and to feel what needed to be felt. So I was able to kind of skip over and then realize it and go back. So
Mhm.
that's something that's possible too. You don't have to do it in order, right?
Well, I want to say that it's, when I talk about it, it sounds like, wow, if I just go through this 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, I'm done.
Right.
But of course that's not reality. It's not straight line. It's more of a spiral, you
Yes.
know? And maybe the closest thing to this is if you think about the way that grief works. And if depending on who you read, there's the 5 or the 7 stages of grief, but it's not like you go through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you go back and forth there, and
Yep.
and that's the way this goes. But I think through intention, so through awareness and realization that, oh, I'm in a process of transition, and through that awareness, you start to see yourself moving through those stages, and your intention helps you to make that spiral become more of a tighter spin, right? That you're moving through those more of a straight line approach.
Yes, I love that. Energy and intention. Those are intangibles that are so important as we make our way through these, uncertain and difficult times. So let's talk about, so for each of the stages, you've talked about what's important,
Yeah.
what's important to focus on. So
Mhm.
for this 4th stage, I want to make sure we, give it its due to be, have you really flesh out, how important it is to stay strategic and disciplined. Talk to us more about that.
Um, yeah, so it really is kind of moving from left brain to right, or from right brain to left brain. My
Okay.
yeah, always gets in the way of those, but you're moving from the really strong feeling, you know, um, creative right brain into, okay, let's get this down, let's come up with the plan. Let's come up with the strategy. Let's look at resources. Who are your resources? What are your financial resources, your time, your people, your skills, all of those things. Let's look at resources. Let's figure out how you're going to use those to develop the strategy, to develop the plan for how you're going to move from where you are now to make this vision a reality. This is truly the manifesting stage.
So the important thing that I'm hearing you say is to have a plan, right? And to
Yep.
take action, take the steps, baby steps in some cases, right? One at a time, to be able to adjust course. So whenever I think
I
of,
think that that's really important there too. It just to adjust course when you need it, because our vision can change too as we grow and learn. It's like, oh, I thought I wanted this to be part of my vision, but I'm finding I don't really like doing that much. So I'm going to just adjust a little bit to keep moving towards a vision that creates a life I love.
yes. So for me, I always, whenever I'm, kind of thinking through a plan, a process, my vision, the thing that keeps me grounded, if you will, which is interesting given the analogy I'm going to share, is an airplane. Like when an airplane is going from here to Boston, it's not a straight line. They don't take off and they land immediately at, Logan what is that? Airport.
Airport.
Right?
I'm
They
like,
don't
it
do
can't
that.
be airport.
They don't do that. I was like, I guess there's some subliminal with airports right now. But anyway, you don't take off and land.
Mhm.
There's a series of corrections that pilot has to make to get
Yeah,
you there because
yeah.
the wind blows and different factors going on. So that's a I love that we have to have a plan. We need a vision. We need to know where we're going, and we need to course correct.
Yeah.
I see a little doggy friend there. So what are the key things that we can focus on in conclusion, as you laid out the 4 stages of transition, we've identified, kind of this time in history that's unique. And, to make this conversation a little more evergreen, because we're talking about this in the time of the COVID shelter in place, pandemic, but, these are evergreen principles, right? That can be applied to any time in history and any time in our life.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think realizing, like you talked about 9/11 and the recession, and at the time, those things felt devastating, and like it didn't feel like we were ever going to recover, and we did. So having faith that we are going to move through this and we will recover and life will be good and we will be with our friends and family again is really important. And that has given me a lot of comfort, and just a much calmer approach to this. It's like, yeah, I was very impacted by both of those things, and life was very good in between them, and it will be again. And as we said, compassion for everyone and knowing that we are all connected in this is so, so very important. And if ever there was a time to give someone the benefit of the doubt, yeah, they're doing their best. Every
Right.
single person is doing their best right now to make it through this.
Right.
And it's not my way, but it's their way, and they've got to do what they've got to do.
Right.
And man, those are things we can definitely, definitely apply it at any time. And, we have life transitions throughout our entire life. We lose close family members. We have divorces and job changes, and we move and our kids move away from home, and all of these ways that we identify ourselves change throughout a life. And so this is just another one of those. It's another opportunity, another invitation, and we can choose to accept that invitation of looking at a deeper level, or we can choose to just do whatever it takes to get through this, and that's okay too. So being kind to yourself.
Yes, I agree. So Karen, this has been a wonderful conversation, and we're going to open it up to our people that are joining us today. But I want you, I think unlike other conversations, I think it's really important that I give you an opportunity to just go through all 4 stages and just summarize them so that we can have that, that context as we walk away from this call and be able to really embrace the universal concepts that you shared with us today.
Okay. So that first stage is the ending. And what we're really focusing on there is taking the steps to stay out of the reptilian reactive mind. So breathing, moving emotion out of the body by dancing or hitting the towel on the table, whatever it is, so that you can come back, take a deep breath, come into your most mature person and think logically. So that's that first stage. In the second stage, we call that the liminal space, the in-between time. And in this space, we are really wanting to focus on feeling the feelings, allowing them to have voice and time and letting them go, on resting and recovering because we might be very fatigued, on spending time in nature and outside and doing things that give you joy. Really important. And really making sure to take care of yourself and give yourself permission for all of the things that you need. It is the ultimate self-care time. And then in the third stage, which is when we start to become very creative and imaginative, we really want to let go of that box that we have had in the past and think of everything we can possibly do. Not thinking about the hows, just thinking about anything that is in our heart that's really calling to us and letting that just be possibility. So really moving into the realm of what could I possibly want to do? And then through that, we start to come into a clearer vision of what we want to do. And in the fourth stage, we are creating that new beginning. We're starting on making that vision a reality by becoming strategic and plan oriented and looking at resources and being realistic about how that change is going to happen.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for summarizing that, and you did it so well. And thank you for sharing with us years of, just your experience, your education, and you have so many gifts to give. And thank you so much for being such an amazing contribution to me and our Exceptional Connections community and beyond.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to be able to, before we open it up, just give people information about if they're interested in getting to know you or working with you. What is the best way to do that?
So my website is Karen Randall Coaching, and that's Randall. And you can contact me through that, or Karen at KarenRandallCoaching.com email. And I have a complimentary session that I always offer. So if anybody just wants to talk more about this, just sign up for that. My scheduling is in there, so just sign up on my calendar there, and we'll have a session and just talk about what's up for you and any questions that you might have. And then I also, of course, offer coaching sessions. I have a couple of other opportunities coming up. Tomorrow afternoon at 3, I'm just doing a complimentary, let's talk more about quarantine, so quarantine reflections. And that you can find through my Facebook page, which is Karen Randall Coaching. And then on the 20th, I'm doing a artsy fartsy sip and play virtual. So Cyndi and I have talked about this before. I do a monthly session called Artsy Fartsy Sip and Play, where we have a creative project, and that's always happened at my home or in my studio. But this time we're doing it virtually. So you're going to be at home and we're going to be doing this together, and you can have your glass of wine or your juice or whatever it is. And then we're going to be doing some paper mache and dried flowers and cool fun stuff.
Nice. Yes, we've been having these live events prior to the shelter in place. And so I'm just, it's wonderful to hear that you're transitioning those to a virtual platform.
Yeah.
So lots of great ways for our community to be able to connect with you. So,
and Marcel just put the link for those in the chat. So anyone can follow that link also.
Okay, awesome.
Hey, and Cyndi, can I chime in? Can I just say that if you haven't done anything one-to-one with Karen, I highly recommend it. She helped me with my grief after I lost my husband. I'm pretty sure I avoided feeling anything for 4 years. And you can miss step 2, right? Or you can miss one of those steps. And so it's super important for growth and just for healthy living to go through them all. And she can lead you through it in such an amazing way. So shout out to Karen, because she's one of my heroes.
No, this is perfect. Thank you for starting our next segment. Is we want to open it up to our community to be able to ask questions, share ahas. And so if you have ambient noise and I unmute you, feel free to mute yourself. But I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask questions or to enter into this really thought-provoking conversation. So I've unmuted everybody, I think, and they want to be unmuted. All right. So, so thanks, Marcel. Anybody else want to share their thoughts, or how did this content land for you? How are you going to be able to use these 4 stages to either be kinder to yourself or to, like Karen says, spiral back around?
I just want to say thank you, Karen, for sharing that. And, it feels really affirming, and knowing that, I am where I need to be, should have, would have, could have, all the things that I should be doing. And sometimes when I don't feel like it, I'm okay with just sitting with that. It's just so beautiful. It's so affirming, confirming, saying that it's okay to be in that pot, to feel and to sit with it. And I love the fact what you talked about dance, how, we carry that stress above our waist. And, I always felt that was so important because, the moving body is also the happy body. And, when I started doing the dance with my community, it felt so weird. I feel awkward. And then I started sharing the dance on my social media. Again, it still feels awkward, but really what it felt like is I hear these messages, private messages, people sending them privately. I'm like, you are so bold and brave. I'm like, have no idea how scary that is. But technically, I'm giving permission for other moms who are there with struggling their kids at home. Be silly and put some music on and just feel the groove, because I can't imagine what they're going through.
Right.
So thank you. This whole, all the notes that I took, it was just so beautiful. And I'm going to read it again, and it just feels so good. So thank you so much for saying that it's okay to be in that space.
Thank you, Roxana, so much. That's great. And I love the dance. I love that you have done that, because as I said, when I did it yesterday for the first time, because you had talked about it, and Cyndi, and I'm like, I need to do some of that too. I do more yoga and walking and stuff, and my mood went so much just immediately. So I think there's some real wisdom in doing that, and especially stay-at-home moms, they can do it with their kids so easily, and it's great for everybody's mood.
Beautiful. I love that. Anyone else? Any ahas, any epiphanies, any questions? And just want to thank Karen for sharing her wisdom with us. I see some hands going up. Marcel.
A question just for when we move back, right? I'm looking now, when do I move everything back in Spark? And do I have to prepare for all this crap to happen again? I mean, it's beautiful crap, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I would throw that back at you. Being a coach, that's what we do. It's like, since you're asking that question, do you feel like there is some trepidation about that? Some more transition thoughts around that? Yeah.
I would say, yeah. So I guess I should just prepare myself for, some bumps maybe, because I don't know what's going to happen when I get there, and then everyone else, I don't know what's going to happen. And I guess that's okay, because I'm not in control. You taught me that. I'm not in control.
Well, and so I would just kind of put it in the four stages again. So you feel yourself, getting very reactive and going into planning stage, take the breath and realize if you're in reptilian mind, so take the breath, move a little bit, move some of that energy out, so you can start to say, am I feeling fear? Am I feeling sad? Just what is it that I'm feeling? And once you know what you're feeling, you can start to plan around it when you're not in your reactive brain. So if you're still afraid, maybe you're too afraid to go back. If you're sad, you need to let that sadness have a voice, right? So going then again back through the four stages, because it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, it's that spiral.
Also, stage 3 that you're talking about, when you're in the envisioning and creative stage and planning, approaching, starting to plan, or I guess the 4th stage. I think it's important to remember that we're in an unprecedented, time in history, and that, the idea of planning 1 year, 5 year, 10 year is really hard right now. And maybe we need to back it in and just say, the next week, the next 3 weeks, the next 60 days, 90 days, and make that our kind of safety net, because I'm having plans and envisioning things for exceptional connections and how things are going to look on the other side. So I really, relate to what you're saying, Marcel. And I'm finding that I'm almost having to stop myself there, because that's where my brain's like, how am I going to do this? We're not going to be able to have a buffet luncheon, and we need a bigger place where people can spread out. And so is that what you're saying? It's normal. Like, we have to kind of pull the reins in sometimes, especially in this unique time in history and so many unknowns.
So I have two responses to that. First off, I just like to laugh about this. Did anybody's vision board in December or January include COVID? I mean, we can all just tear those up and throw them away, right? But secondly, when you start feeling afraid, you can almost always.
I'm going to mute everybody because there's some kind of weird noise going on. And then raise your hand if you want to talk.
You can almost always be assured that you are thinking future, right? So if that fear starts to get too much, then come back to right now. And right now, you have a house, you have clothes, you have food, your family is safe. And I think that fear thing gets so big when we start trying to plan out into the future. So you're right, we can plan this week, right now. That's kind of what we can do.
We're in today,
Today, yeah.
Right.
And even then, your internet doesn't work and your printer doesn't work. And
it happens. Yeah, we're alluding to what happened before this call, but it all works out. And so Allison raised her hand. So Allison, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. So what Karen said really reminded me of, I went to a seminar this year. It was called Mindfulness for Teens. Mm-hmm. And there was an acronym that they taught us, which was SOBER. And so S is for, like, when you're feeling overwhelming feelings or frustrated or angry, is to stop. And then O is for observe. So O is observe, like, what's happening in my body, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where is my anxiety? And then you go to B, which is breathe. So what you want to do is breathe down that anxiety to a point where you're going from that primitive brain that you were talking about, Karen, to the part where you're able to actually think again. And then the E is for explore. So, okay, what are my options? Do I want to, go and do some yoga? Do I need a timeout? What do I need to do? And then you're able to respond, which is the R part, instead of react. And so it just brought that back up. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
That's beautiful, Allison. And Allison is such a gift to our community. We missed you, and this is one of the blessings of this shelter in place opportunity as you've been joining our calls. So I love that. It's a short, easy way to kind of get grounded and remember that we do have tools, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing for the fridge,
It is.
Uh-huh.
So at sober, and it's stop, observe, breathe, explore, and respond.
Correct.
Love it.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Love it.
We'll have to shout that one out.
Yeah.
So anybody else want to share before we wrap up this call? And I've got a really exciting news at the end. So I'm anxious to share it, but I want to make sure there's space for anybody. Raise your hand because I've muted everybody. Anybody else want to share their ahas?
Well, and this might be more of another question than aha,
That's
but like with Dreamosity, it's very much positive and hallmark and bubbly. And so Karen, you're saying that a lot of people are having the feelings. Is that something that my business should create space for that, or should it be more of let them do that in their own, coaching, therapy, dance party? Like, I guess, should I see myself as a facilitator of that now that I understand it more? Or should I kind of let them just come to you?
Both and.
Okay.
I want to go back to that same statement I said to you before, and that's that vulnerability invites vulnerability. So I think the more of that we can do right now, and making it okay to, one day you might be great, and the next day you're just like, I don't know what happened. I just am so down with all, done with all of this. I think inviting or allowing people to do that, or even in your case, suggesting that as a possibility would be great. That's not forcing everyone, it's just opening the door. And they can choose whether they're comfortable walking through it or not.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
That feels like, to me, the piece about being kind to yourself and others, right? It's just being aware of what we're going through in our own body, and then our own home, our own city. We keep pulling that out and continuing to just offer, compassion. So thank you. Well, thank you all for being part of our conversation today. And this will be on a replay. So if you can hang in there just for a few more minutes, I want to share with you, we've started a YouTube channel for Exceptional Connections. So if you haven't already, please go to Exceptional Connections on YouTube and subscribe, ring the bell so that you can get the notification for our weekly Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real. And Karen, you've been such a blessing to me and to our community. And I want to just thank Marcel, because Marcel introduced Karen to Exceptional Connections. I think it was last year. You've been coming for about a year. And so, just really thank you. This is what Exceptional Connections is all about, is when we attract amazing people like Marcel and Chuck and Allison and Rikshana and Gil and Nancy and others that were on this call today, and beyond. And then we also have the opportunity to actually get to know each other. Karen and I have had a number of Zoom calls, and we shared our lives with each other and different things that we've been through. And from there, we see opportunities to how we can work together. Marcel's been a spotlight speaker for us. And, again, just so many, I just think it's a beautiful dance. And I just thank you, Karen, for so generously sharing your wisdom with me and our community.
Oh, thank you, Cyndi. And I thank you for this opportunity, because Marcel has continued to say, this is the time. This is what people need right now. And so I really appreciate this opportunity to share this. And, everyone has their gifts and their way of navigating this, and if this helps anyone, I am grateful, but it's just an offering. And so thank you so much for that opportunity.
Yes, well, absolutely. And so my ask, if you will, is if you will go, because this is a complimentary call that we're offering to support our community at this time of transition. So again, please go to the YouTube, and then I'm learning things about YouTube I didn't know before. So not only subscribe and ring the bell so you know when the next conversation is landing, but also read the description, the individual videos, make a comment. So all of that helps the SEO. So again, I'm learning a lot here, and want to be able to extend that to you, not only to offer it to Exceptional Connections so that we can expand our reach, but also information for you. Get going and get a YouTube channel. And if you need any help with that, let me know. I may do a video in the future. So I just want to close with our next event. We have 3 events, complimentary events every week. And so on Mondays, we are continuing to offer Resource Monday, virtual tea. And so join us from noon to 1. And it's just an opportunity for us to chat and connect and get to know each other. It's not formal, but in that we were able to exchange information and learn how we can best support you with your business. On Wednesdays, again, we're going to be continuing probably for quite a while now our Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real. I have a wonderful lineup of guest speakers already scheduled for May. And then on Fridays, we offer virtual happy hour from 5 to 6. So please feel free to join us. We always have fun. Sometimes we sing, sometimes we dance, sometimes we tell jokes. We just have a great time. But this Friday, I got the commitment from Justin Young Sachs that he's going to be joining us for a song or two. So Justin Young is married to Rachel Young. Rachel will actually be one of our Conversation to Connect guests next week. So you'll want to tune in next Wednesday to hear her. But her husband is just an amazing musician, artist, all around great guy. He's always been a supporter of Exceptional Connections and what we've been up to. So do join us on Friday for our Happy Hour Friday, and we're going to have some music as well. And then just in closing, next Tuesday, we'll be having our second, drum roll please, number two, our second virtual networking event. And so that will be on Tuesday, May 12th from noon to 2. And we'd love to have you join us, and also invite people who are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners who need to meet other people. So Amanda Goff will be our speaker, and Amanda is going to be talking about being able to connect in a digital world. And so we actually pivoted from her original subject so that it's more relevant to these times. And anyway, we'd just love to have you join us. We had 30 people at our first virtual networking luncheon, and we actually 28, that's wrong, 29 at our first in April, and we already have 31 people registered, and we have, about a week to go. So love to have you guys join us. Go to Exceptional-Connections Facebook, and you can see our events that we have and the links to be able to take advantage of it. So thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to unmute everybody quickly so you can just say parting words, and thanks to Karen.
Thanks, Karen. You were wonderful.
Thanks, Karen.
Yep.
Thanks, Cyndi.
Thank
Great
you,
job.
Karen.
Great
Great
to see you
job.
all.
Thank
Great
you.
work.
Thank you, Cyndi.
Thanks, Karen.
Mhm.
Thank you guys. You're awesome. Take care. Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hope to see you on Friday or next Tuesday. Thank you guys. Bye, Allison. Miss you.
Bye.
We need to
I know.
connect.
Yeah. Okay.